Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Earth and Body Ecosystems, where we explore the connection between the body and the earth surrounding us. Maybe not all at the same time, but that's our goal. So today, Joyce is off at a conference, and I have a very special guest here, my good friend Diane Jarecki. We decided we love to talk anyway, so why not us do it, right? So tonight, our topic is tools that you can use for healing, not just physical healing, but mental and emotional healing, which really lays a foundation for physical health and the connection. So, absolutely. And I'll let Diane tell you a little bit about herself, and we'll go from there.
So, hi, I'm Diane Jarecki. I am a tarot, Lenormand, and oracle card reader, a metaphysical life coach, and a Reiki master teacher. And the tarot and oracles and the Reiki is what I combined in the metaphysical life coaching as well as life coaching. And metaphysical because not only the Reiki and the tarot and oracles, but also working with things like law of attraction and stuff, helping with action steps to do that. So, because we are a psychosoma, a mind body. So your thoughts control your reality. We have to look for the things that are wrong with us physically and the things that are going wrong in our lives, in our thoughts, which aren't always things that we're conscious of. Like, not everything is in our conscience. A lot of it is subconscious or in our consciousness. So the tarot is a wonderful tool for bringing that stuff that is hidden from us, you know, the stuff that we've pushed away, we've repressed, we've shoved down to deep recesses. It's a way to bring that stuff out so that we can deal with it, because you can't heal what you don't know is happening from things that, you know, from your past. And there are a lot of modalities that do this. And this is what I use, because I feel like something that is affecting the mind body needs to be dealt with in a mind body way. So in the coaching sessions, I use the tarot and oracle cards to find what it is that's blocking us, find out what it is that is making us sabotage ourselves, etc. And we find those issues one at a time, layers of an onion. You got to peel it back. And then I use Reiki and intuitive healing to free those blocks up, as well as kinesiology. Kinesiology is a wonderful way too, where we can ask the body, what does it need in order to free those blocks up? Maybe we don't do a Reiki session on it. Maybe your subconscious or superconscious actually says, no, that's not the tool for me. We find out what is then, and we work with it. Maybe you need drumming, maybe you need sound therapy, meditation. So I find what those methods are that you need to be working with, and then we deal with them. And I have a method for working with people with kinesiology that doesn't require them to be in my presence for me to be able to push on their arm. I can teach a method or a couple of different methods of doing it so that I can do it online with somebody in a video, and we can work together still with the kinesiology, where they can self-test with it. And the Reiki and intuitive healing works over distance. So I can do all of this online. I prefer in person if possible, yes, but I can absolutely do it online just as easily and effectively.
That's one of the core principles of Reiki is long distance healing. So
Yeah.
you don't have to be in the same room. I think there is definitely a benefit for hands-on, but it's no less effective. I've done it myself with people over distance, and they've felt it, and they've benefited from it. So it is definitely that way. And I also work with tarot in a similar way, which I call it path working. So basically my concept is, where are you right now? And where do you want to go? And what are the steps that you need to do to get there? So with like Diane, if there's something blocking you from getting from point A to point B, we can find that block and we can work with that to find a path to get you to where you want to go. And I'm also an herbalist, so I also can throw in herbal consulting with that too, because herbs can really help support the mind and the body in different ways that can help you relax, can be less stressed, more focused. Some of my go-tos, So what else do, besides Reiki, and you mentioned drumming and other forms that you would help people with?
Oh yes, and I do sound therapy. That does work a little bit better in person, unless somebody has the like binaural headsets. And then I also work with aromatherapy, crystals. So there's all kinds of things that I can recommend for people, again, going back to doing that testing and finding out, is there a crystal you need? Is there, so we can test for different things, because sometimes what you consciously think would work for you isn't really what will work. Right. So kinesiology works with your, not your subconscious, but your super conscious, because that is really the intuitive part of you. And that's what we need to talk to find out what it is that you need. So the subconscious is where the blocks are. The superconscious is where we find the healing of those blocks. So
could you explain to people that may have never heard of kinesiology what it is and how it works? You've explained that it's a way to test, but how does that exactly work?
So kinesiology tests, like I said, it taps into your body's wisdom. Okay. Like I said, that super conscious. And it kind of bypasses both your conscious and subconscious minds and goes to that super conscious. And so it's a way that that part of your mind can talk to you. So I don't know really how to put it all into words. I know it works.
Right.
So usually what it's doing is it tests strength and weakness. You're using strength and weakness, because what's true to your body or true to you, truth for you, will give a strong result. What's false will give a bad result. This can also be used for foods and medicines and things, because your superconscious knows this stuff.
Right.
And
right.
So if it's good for you personally, then it'll test strong. If it doesn't, it'll test weak. And typically that test is done by having the person hold out their arm, and you say a true statement first to test their
response,
strong and weak responses.
Yeah.
You say something like their real name and then a different name, and you test for that being true or false. And false will give a weak response. You will not be able to hold against that pressure, and a strong response you absolutely will be able to. But like I said, there's methods that I teach my clients that I've learned to use for doing it for myself.
Right. I know of one way, and it's basically using your body as a pendulum, kind of, you know. So if you hold, say, a food, and you want to know, and like you do, you figure out what your yes and no is, and you want to know if that is really good for you. Like, say, for instance, popcorn. Okay. So if this is really good for me, you hold some in your hand, and you can close your eyes and see which way your body sways, and that can give you the answer once you've already predetermined, like, will I lean forward, will I lean backwards, side to side, and you determine, well, if I go side to side, that might be my no. And if I go back and forth, but it's different for everybody, if I go back and forth, then it might be a yes. That's how you can, that's just the way that I know and I have done in the past. But so it's really testing your brain, right? And your muscles and the balance. And so it's like, I would say it's the principle of our body, and our higher self knows what we need when we get our brain and our mind out of the way. Right? Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, except with the body is a pendulum. What I've learned is backwards is a negative, forwards is a positive. And that, I never learned anything about your body going side to side. I've learned backwards, but negative, forward, positive. And you have to kind of have your knees not bent, not locked, but kind of relaxed in order for that one to work well. And it's funny because I don't know if you've ever had this experience, but I've been doing things like thinking about something while I'm pulling jewelry out of my jewelry box for the day. And all of a sudden my body moves either forward or backward. And I'm like, oh, wow, because I asked a question mentally and my body answered it.
Oh, wow. I'll have to pay attention to that.
I have had that happen where I wasn't intentionally doing it. I was just in the right stance and it happened. And I realized what happened, that I had asked a question mentally and my body responded. But it's not the method that I try to teach people, because yes, that's one way to do it, but you really do have to get the stance right.
Yes, I would agree.
To work.
Excuse me.
One method that I learned to be able to self-test is to sit with your legs crossed and take the knee that is, the bent one up, the leg that's resting on the knee.
Yeah, the one on top of the
other
knee.
To take that one. It'd be so much easier to demonstrate if I could.
Right, exactly.
I'm not going to try to sit on my desk in a way that wouldn't work out well. So, right. Anyway, but to press down on that knee, and if to say something like your first name and hold against that pressure, that's if it's strong, that's a yes. And then to say a name that's not yours. One thing I learned through reading one book is beware of your eyes and where they're focused. Look downward, because if you are looking upward, you can get false responses. And it's funny, that was from Psych K with Dr. Joe Dispenza. And he said that gave false weak responses or negative responses. For me, it gives false positives.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So looking downward gives a more accurate result. And I did test that when I was reading that part of the book. So I found that out, that is important too, is to be careful of where your eyes are, which might be why it would happen when I was doing something like looking down a little bit to pick out my jewelry for the day.
Right.
In the proper position as well. So I don't know, but there's a couple of other methods too that use your fingers. That is what I teach my clients.
Yeah, I've heard of many different ways, but basically it's attention.
One is to do this.
Yeah.
You can do this way. But the one like this, I found doesn't work for me because I can always pull through.
Right.
So for me, that one didn't work.
So it's
What I
basically,
do,
yeah.
I'll show you. What I do basically is this. So I've got my
Oh, your fingers.
3 fingers and a thumb wrapped inside the fingers of the other hand. And so if I say, my name is Diane, I can't break that. And I'm not like super squeezing. I'm just barely, these are just barely touching. My name is Diane. I can't break that. My name is Susan. And I can't, my name is Susan. I can't hold it.
Right.
So that is kinesiology right there in a nutshell. Right. And that's the method that works for me. That is what I teach my clients to do.
So basically,
as we go through statements, I have them do that.
Yeah. So basically, for people that might be listening on a podcast and don't see the video, basically it's tension and release. So so basically you won't be that easy no matter what. And she described the position very well, but basically it's tension. That tension is there, and then it releases if it's a yes or no. So I would say that would be the basics, right? Or would you add anything?
If it's a yes, or if it's a true, and the truth, then, or good for you or whatever, it will not release. It will hold strong.
Right.
And if it is false or a lie or whatever, then it will release.
Thank you.
So it was loosely holding the first 3 fingers of one hand and the thumb like gathered, so they're all touching, with the thumb and index finger of the other hand wrapped around them, and just touching each other, not just touching each other, like just holding strong enough without, you're not like trying to dig your nail into your thumb.
Right.
You're holding just enough tension there. And if it's a true statement, you will not be able to break that. And you can use that. That's actually one that I developed for being in the grocery store and testing about foods. When I was doing a lot of trying to figure out what foods I was having issues with and stuff, then I was doing that a lot in the grocery store.
And that can come in very handy because
it can, and it's discreet in the grocery store. I mean, if you're sitting there doing that with your, people aren't paying attention to what you're doing with your hands for 2 seconds in a grocery store aisle. Trust me.
Right.
If they do, they don't know what you're doing and they don't care.
Right.
It looks funny for a minute. Who cares?
But because I found, and I realized over time, that we're all different when it comes to diet, and what might be fine for one person is a big trigger for another person. So that technique can be very helpful to find out really might be beneficial for you. Even if you think it's not beneficial, it might be good for you. So that's a good test.
Well, so you can test it out on sayings like, I mean, not just your name, but what color shirt or pants or something that you're wearing, whether it's daytime or nighttime. Don't do that at liminal times. Do it at either when it is definitely and distinctly daylight or definitely and distinctly nighttime. And, so those are ways you can test it and play with it to make sure that it's working right for you.
Right. So that's kind of like when we work with a pendulum, usually people have their own way of working with the pendulum,
Oh, yes.
One way for one person is not the way that works for another person. So it sounds like you go actually coach somebody so that they can find the right method of muscle testing or kinesiology that works for them, right?
Yes.
So that's because not one size fits all, everybody has their own little, I want to say ecosystems because that fits with with our podcast. Everybody has their own uniqueness is probably a better word. So
yes, everybody is unique. And so, sometimes the very first session, we might not get as far as we do in later sessions.
Right, so exactly.
Some of these things in the introductory session, if people at the end of that say absolutely they're interested in working with me, we may go through and add a few, a little bit of extra time to that introductory session just to go ahead and do that, because that's, I do one free kind of meet and greet introductory session to determine if we're a good fit for working together, because not everybody is a good fit for working with each other too. And so for me, whether you're planning on doing one session or planning on doing any of the packages that I order or offer for like the 3 months or 6 months, we're still going to do a first free session to meet each other and determine whether or not we would work together well. Because if we don't jive, then even a one session isn't going to be worth your time and money.
Exactly. And that's why that makes perfect sense to me.
And I don't like people wasting time and money. I know it's important to me not to waste mine. So
right, exactly. Being a professional tarot reader, I've learned not to take it personally if I don't jive with somebody and they don't, resonate with me, then that's okay. Because, they may, we all have, like I said, we all have our own uniquenesses, and we all have, let's say, a vibrational frequency, and it may just not be off. So it may not be the person that you need to work with. So it's good to look around, and a lot more people I'm noticing are offering a free introductory to see if you fit. And I think that's a really wise decision. And so I'm thinking I will probably, and I have done this in the past, I just haven't finished my website. I'm one of the worst procrastinators out there sometimes. But anyway,
both.
Yes.
I can be.
So, I have definitely offered in the past first reading with me free, because we got to find out where you're at, what's going on with you, and then you can jump into what we can work on. Where do you want to get to? Do you want to be a podcaster? Do you want to speak in public? Just for example, because that's where my friend and co-host Joyce is today. She's at a speakers conference because she wants to really enjoy speaking in front of people. So, we can get you there. We have the tools. Me, Diane, Joyce, we have those tools to help you get where you want to get, Well,
I kind of tend to specialize in working, especially with people who have been through a lot of traumas, coming from a background where I grew up with abuse from my mother, and I've been through attempted rapes, miscarriages, divorces, widowed. So I've been through a lot of the traumatic experiences of life, and I've healed a lot of that trauma. And I mean, like everybody, I'm still a work in progress, but I have healed quite a bit of my stuff. And so I can help people get started on their healing journey from those types of things. There are other tools and resources that I recommend depending on the person and their situation. Because typically coming from those types of experiences, that causes a lot of low self-esteem, lack of self-love. So a lot of self-sabotage comes from that. Mm-hmm. Because I also work with people then with overcoming the things that are blocking them from achieving their goals for their diet and lifestyle changes they want to make, and things like that too. Not just, so not just business goals and things like that, but the diet and lifestyle goals, the romantic relationship goals. Because if you're not in a healthy place emotionally, because you still have PTSD without even knowing it from those experiences that you've been through with past relationship traumas, any past traumas, childhood traumas, then you're not attracting healthy relationships. If you grew up in a household, for example, with an abusive father or a father who's an alcoholic and an addict, guess what you're going to attract? Or if you're a man and you grew up with a mother with all of that, or both parents, whether you're male or female, these are what you're going to attract into your life for your relationships. We tend to spend our early adult years trying to heal that through our relationships without knowing it.
Right. And it's really got to come from within. It's something we have to, before we can allow really open ourselves to another being on a healthy level, we have to kind of clear out the junk that we've got within us.
Well, and working on the psychic phone lines, one thing that I see so much is so many people out there that are in toxic relationships, and they go from toxic relationship to toxic relationship. And as they're getting out of one toxic relationship, and they say, okay, this isn't going to work. This is toxic. I agree. You nailed that. What was happening? They're like, so when am I meeting somebody new?
Yep.
After
that's always
the cards always show me after something like that, space to heal. It comes up in the cards a lot before they get that. I don't know how many of them take that space to heal and wait for that right person. I feel like some of these people really jump right into the next toxic relationship instead, because they don't do their healing work. The people that I've worked with that do their healing work don't do that, and they wait and they do that healing, and then they actually find that healthy relationship. So
not necessarily perfect, but healthier.
And you know what? That's something I see a lot in the cards too, is people that are looking for the perfect relationship. And that doesn't exist. The perfect person and the perfect relationship doesn't exist. The perfect person for me, whose flaws that I can live with, and I can love that person in spite of them, accept those flaws, and they can accept mine and love me for me. That is what you're looking for. Because if you're trying to fix the other person, that's not going to happen.
Right.
So and you can't, and people who are so desperate to not be alone because they're so afraid of being alone with themselves, and they feel like they need somebody else to make them happy. I can't be happy without somebody else in my life. If you're not happy already, you're never going to find that with somebody else. Never. You're going to go into a toxic relationship. Happiness must come from within first. I've listened to Sadhguru a lot, and he says that it has to be right in here first. If you are alone and you're miserable, you're with bad company.
Right. If you're alone, you're miserable, you're in bad company.
You're in bad company, because where is that coming from? It's coming from in here.
Mm-hmm.
Self-love and self-esteem, feelings of worthiness, that joy, that has to come in from inside first. You have to be happy in your own life no matter what's going on in the world. And if you're not, that's what needs to be healed first. You can't go into a relationship when you're not in that place, because you are going to attract the wrong people, the wrong relationships, the wrong situations, the wrong jobs, the wrong everything, because you're looking for happiness outside and expecting something else to bring that to you. And you're not bringing it to anything because you don't have it inside yet. You have to get it in here first. And that's what I help people do. And that's where you have to identify those things. You have to overcome those in order to reach that place. That's the place I was in when I met Steve. I was happy, perfectly happy, whether I was in a relationship or not. I had reached that place. And this is what I help people do.
Thank you. And I I can really agree with that. It all comes from in here. And I want to say, I don't think like happiness is not, doesn't mean everything is butterflies and unicorns.
Right. No.
It's tough
no
times.
matter what's going on outside there. Outside there has
right.
too many other people influencing it. So no, everything isn't going to be butterflies and unicorns.
Yeah.
But your butterflies and unicorns in here, no matter what's going on out there. That happiness is so deep that it's still in here, no matter what is going on out there.
Right.
That's what we need to achieve.
Right. Right. But I'm saying that life happens and there's still going to be struggles. There's still going to be hard times. And there's still going to be times when you get frustrated. And what I call it in myself, and I'll be honest here, I've got pulled off. I've got pulled off center. For me, it's finding that center place, that point within that never changes. I could say it's, some might call it the God within or the light within, that stillness, that still point within you that never changes, is always steady. And sometimes we have to look for it. And I can say, I've been challenged this past 2 years. I have been challenged to stay in that still center, to come back to it, you know, no matter what's going on, when things don't go right, when things get tough and things are not going right, is being able to come back into that center and finding that strength that never wavers. And that's what's got me through my traumas, some of my hard times, is I always can find coming back. And I admit, these last few years, it's been a struggle and I'm still struggling, but it's not stopping me from moving forward. I started this podcast. So obviously I'm still able to get things done, even though I don't feel like I'm in that butterfly unicorn place all the time. But I come back to it enough that I can get things done and I can move forward. So that's what I'm trying to say. I don't think always that happiness is always like flood on my sun and everything's beautiful. The sun's coming out. Okay, I just made up a song, but it's like, but we can always come back to that place no matter what, you know, if it's only for 5 minutes and 5 minutes of meditation, you can come back to that place, you know, when things like, I'll be honest, okay? I'm into Kundalini yoga and I use a lot of what I do is the breath work and the meditation. I'm not that great at twisting my body into a pretzel, okay? That's just not me. But I am involved with the Korean Women's Leadership Society, which is through Rama Institute. And our leader, Guru Jagat, recently passed away August 1st. And it was heartbreaking to me because I know there's a lot of people that have poo-pooed her, but I have spoken to her personally. I've seen her on calls with other people, and I can tell you that she came from her heart space. Okay. Not everybody vibed with her, right? So like what we've been talking about, not everybody jives with everybody else, but I could see that she was coming from her heart space. So it upset me. And I'm sad because she was only 41 years old. And this, she never should have passed. It never should have happened. And I'm sure it could have been prevented. But anyway, the fact is that throws me off. But it's also can bring me back too. That can bring me back. It can be my wake-up call, like, listen to yourself, be centered. Because one thing she told me, and I want to share it here, and it will live with me for the rest of my life. When we were having our conversation, she said, my wisdom that I carry oozes from me. She said, and I could go back on tape and listen to exactly what she said, and I probably will when I'm ready to do that. But we all have these wisdom and gifts to share, and we can't be derailed by what's going on around us to share those gifts. We must move forward and share our gifts. And for anything she taught me, that is, don't be afraid to step up and share your gifts. And if you need to heal, don't be afraid to ask for help, because we all need help, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not above needing help. Okay. So nobody should feel like they're alone and there's not anybody out there to help them. That's why part of me is doing the podcast, is to help people. Because I help other people, then we help all of humanity. It becomes a chain that bridges everything together. So, okay, I got a little winded there, but I was.
It's okay. No, but I'm lucky because, well, I say lucky. I have reached that point where I only get derailed now for a few minutes, and then I come back to center.
That's wonderful.
Yes. Now, we will find out. I mean, my parents are in their 80s, and that could rock me. We'll find out at some point here in the not too distant future. But I have reached that point where I really don't get rocked for very long by life, no matter what happens. I get my center back very quickly and very easily. But it's been years of hard work to achieve that. You know, it's been a lot of working on myself. It's been a lot of study and integrating things as I've learned them. And, you know, now dedication and focus.
Right.
So,
and I think what happened to me is part of like what they call a healing crisis. Because sometimes we start releasing stuff, and I feel like I've reached a lot. I've gone through, like you were talking about how with the subconscious and the conscious mind. I noticed when I got into the Kundalini yoga that words, and it's still happening. I'm noticing more often the thoughts coming into my head, and those thoughts are not positive thoughts. And it was almost like that thought would happen, and then something would happen, like, you know, and so that was my subconscious talking, and it wasn't positive, and it was always like negative talk. And I've learned to point that, to realize that's what's going on, and that it's kind of a way of self-sabotaging. So I've learned a lot through this being knocked off my center. You know, I've learned a lot
over the years.
Yeah.
And that's why, I mean, my last moment was when we got delayed last year in selling our house. We had it on the market. We were this close to a sale, and COVID hit. And Pennsylvania's market shut down.
Yeah.
And the year before that, we had gone through having to back out of a sale of the house and everything. And I actually hit a rock bottom moment, just total despair, which is a place I don't hit very often, but it's not a total stranger to me, but total despair, sitting out on our back patio, just crying and crying. And well, because this had gone on, you know, at first when it was just 14 days to slow the spread. Does everybody remember that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
I, you know, wasn't too worried about it. But when it switched on and on and on, and we hit a point where everything was still closed, and that's when that moment hit. And I sat out there and I cried and cried and cried. And I was in that real woe is me, you know, my life sucks, everything's horrible. And I caught my thoughts and feelings and said, wait a minute. And in that moment, I said, what else can go right with my life? And in that moment, things started changing for me. See, this is the metaphysical part of my life coaching.
Exactly.
Because that's when the market opened up again in Pennsylvania. So things started moving, and everything started moving and happening for us. Is when it was right after, like within days of when I sat out there in that moment and caught it and turned it around. So I teach people how to have those mantras, how to have those things when you're in that negative headspace. When I catch myself with negative thinking, I have a mantra that I say. And I help people create their own. I'm not going to share that just because that's mine. And I help people to create their mantras so that you can stop that negative thought and turn that thought around and get a positive thought in its place. So it's my go-to. If you have something that you've practiced and you've repeated it and it's your go-to, then the moment you have a negative thought, your brain will automatically start kicking into that mantra.
Yep.
That's what I find happens with me. I automatically kick that mantra in. And again, things start to turn around, but because I come out of that negative space. So that's why I'm only there for a few minutes now, because automatically my mantra starts kicking in and gets rid of that negative feeling, that negative thinking, because feelings are just thoughts.
Right.
That was a key for me to learn that I could control my emotions because I can control my thoughts. You don't have to let emotions happen to you. You can control them by controlling your thoughts. And a belief is just a thought that we think over and over and over again. So if you want to change your life, you have to change your beliefs. To change your beliefs, you have to change your thoughts. How do you do that? I help you.
Exactly. And emotions are tricky things, that's for sure. And there are some people that need to express emotions because they hold it up. We talked about that in another podcast, where holding and holding it back can be just about as unhelpful as not learning how to work with your emotions and using them for your.
I keep these handy.
Right. To use it for your benefit and not going into the pit of despair, but allowing yourself to have a cry once in a while.
Oh, yeah. You have to. And I encourage people. I mean, like I was just talking last night to a young woman who had just had a miscarriage of twins. And one of the things I told her is don't let anybody tell you when it's time to stop grieving. Everybody has their own grief timetable, and allow yourself to have your grief process. Everybody's process is different. Everybody's time for it is different. And you have to allow that.
There's
Hands are very cleansing, and we're not taught in society. We're taught to hold that back. Oh, it's not okay to cry. It's not okay to be angry. It's not okay to express anger at the world for what's happening and this frustration and all these things inside. Well, yes, it is. And that's a lot of what comes up in the tarot part of the sessions as we unlock those hidden things. Stuff comes up where people are like, oh my God, I'd forgotten about that. Or I knew about that, but it was just kind of back there or whatever, and it's kind of why, like, I use different decks for that too, because I use softer, kind of more healing decks. So one of my favorite decks is the Tarot of the Light Seers, or the Light Seers Tarot by Chris Ann. I love this deck. And another one, a new deck to me that I'm just working with, but I love its energy for this because I feel it's, again, like a softer healing energy, is the Forest of Enchantment Tarot by Linnea Witherspoon.
Oh, I have that deck too. I love that deck. That's a really nice deck. It has
a lot of, again, like healing energy and stuff.
Yeah, it's very earthy. Excuse me. It's very earthy and deep.
Very earthy.
Yeah.
So I feel like those two are those are my two kind of go-to decks for this kind of work, because they're more healing type of decks.
Yeah. I have my favorites too when we're talking decks. This is called the Robin Wood Tarot. And I always think of it as Robin Hood, but it's Robin Wood because that's her name that created the deck. So it's a more of a traditional style deck. And I find this is really good for like everyday readings, what you find, but it's pretty good. I like it. It's one of my newer ones, but one of my favorites, I think, that I like working, and I also like using oracle cards. Also, I didn't bring any of those, but it's funny, when I learned to read tarot, I had two decks, and I didn't know at the time. One was a Thoth-based deck, and the other was a Rider-Waite-Smith deck, and I thought they were all equal. And I learned later on there are they are very similar, but there are differences. And a lot of people are, you know, if you can read one, you can read the other, but I don't recommend trying to learn on two different decks at the same time, because that's what happened.
I did that too. So I totally get it, because it was the Medicine Woman Tarot and the Eakins one. I'll think of it.
Yeah. So I found, so
both based,
yeah. So I found this deck, which is, and for those that can't see it, it's called the Star Tarot. And not only does it have brilliant images and animals and everything, it is a cross between the Thoth and Rider-Waite-Smith. And for some reason, and I think it's because what I was trying to do when I was learning, right? I was learning two different systems at the time. They're similar. Definitely, there's a lot of crossover.
Right, but they're both from the Golden Dawn, so they're both based in the same system.
Right, with a little bit of nuance differences. And but anyway, I love it. And I find it really great for path working because it really hits those spots because of the images and just the way it feels. It's just the energy really sinks to me. And that's how I think you have a really good deck, because you don't really need anything else. The deck just sinks to you, and you can interpret it with thinking, and things come out of the blue. Well, that comes out. Like for me, when I read, I'm very intuitive. So a card may have a traditional meaning, but sometimes in the reading, I will get a message that the card will pop into my head. So, because I'm what they call clair or cognizance, which is I just have this inner knowing. So when I read, that's what tarot does for me. It helps bring out my inner knowing. So sometimes the reading, say Diane may read and interpret that in totally a different way than I do, but neither one of us is wrong. It's just the way that we're interpreting it. And it's the message that we're getting. And the message may be similar in the big picture, but we see it differently and we're reading differently. So that's one way when people read tarot, that's how it works.
Well, they say if you sit 10 different tarot readers down, you sit 10 tarot readers down in a room and you ask the same question and you lay out the same cards, you're going to get 10 different answers.
Yep.
Where the Lenormand, and this is why sometimes I like it for clarification, is not that way. You're going to get pretty much almost exactly the same interpretation from all 10 people, because it's not as wide open to intuitive interpretation. The keywords are pretty much set in stone.
Right.
You know, the key is success. You know, there's a limited set of meanings for them. And so they're more direct and easier to use for clarification. So you're going to have fewer different interpretations to Lenormand. Oracles are a whole different thing. And the one that I use a lot is The Wisdom of the Oracle by Colette Baron-Reid. My other favorite is her Enchanted Map Tarot. So, or Oracle, I mean, her Enchanted Map Oracle. So both of my favorite decks are Colette Baron-Reid decks. They're just so intuitive and so easy to use without the book. And they speak to a lot of these healing things. So for me, those are the two that are my go-to Oracle decks for doing healing work. You know, I do fortune telling type readings too, and that's a whole different methodology. And for that, I really like using the Tarot de Marseille, or again, Tarot of the Light Seers. This is my good, like, all around everything deck.
Fortune telling is more of predictive events, right? That's right, what's coming up.
You know, I can do those readings as well, and I do. But
and Diane knows I can do those readings too.
Oh yeah. But you know, some of the things that I work with or worked with myself. So if somebody wants to do their own, you know, tarot healing work, tarot shadow work, if you can get a hold of a copy of this book, This is the harder one to get a hold of than the next one. I've got two by the same author, Christine Jetty. She's just awesome when it comes to using tarot and healing work. And
Yep.
this
Oh,
tarot
yeah,
of the healing,
classic.
the healing heart. So both of these are excellent, excellent resources for it. And then I also recommend Mindful Tarot for learning how to read in that kind of healing tarot and mindful way.
Right.
Lisa has a YouTube channel, or had a YouTube channel by the same name. I don't know if she's still on. I haven't seen her in a long time, but the book is absolutely brilliant. So these are kind of my own personal resources for how I learned to apply tarot this way.
Right, right. Well, I wanted to say my favorite oracles are the mystical shaman oracle. Is that Colin Reed? I think it is.
She's part of the team on that. There were like,
the artist
involved.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
anyway, I don't like, lots of times when an oracle, they come with a book, and sometimes you know, I'm reading with a book, but this one sings to me so much that I don't need a book. I can interpret those cards like so easily. And I think one of the funniest things was when I was doing a reading for a medium, and I pulled a mist from the shaman mystical, and we got to ghost dance. We sat there and we, because she works with, you know, it was hauntings and stuff. So we both were like, really? It was just so perfect, you know. And also another one,
those synchronicities
happen. Yeah, it was just one of those
where you start to laugh. You're just like, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. And she didn't see it. I showed it. I started laughing, and she's looking at my face. What? And then I show her the card. She's like, oh, of course. You know, what path should I be on? Well, of course. But anyway, and then the other one is by Amy Brown, and I was a fan of Amy Brown's artwork probably 20 years ago. She's been around a long while. Yes. It's a fairy oracle, and I just love that. And I actually love the book that goes with it. I love reading the messages. To me, it's one that's very well done and very well written. So I really appreciate that one. So yeah, and Diane, I would recommend those books also. Tarot, the Healing Heart, that's a classic. But be ready to dive deep. I mean, if you're ready, those are deep dives. And
well, and the tarot shadow work too. Yes, Christine Jetty does a wonderful, wonderful job.
Yeah,
I think she is my overall favorite tarot author.
I could say, if I remember when looking through those, you don't even have to be a tarot reader to use those books, because a lot of it is getting those questions and asking yourself those questions. And
so with those books, you don't have, right, you're right, you can do just journaling with them. You don't have to use the tarot with them, or you can use oracles with them, or you can use whatever.
Right, whatever your favorite, divination tool is. Yeah, because they really go deep. I think it's about time any closing remarks, and where can people find your, get in touch with you and all that good stuff?
All right, so I have a blog and website that is ourmysticalhaven.com. And then my YouTube channel is actually under my name of Diane Jarecki. I haven't changed it because I would have to change the entire account name. And I didn't really want to do that because I use that email for other things. Although I'm working on separating it, I may do that in the future. Don't be surprised if the channel name changes to Our Mystical Haven. And you can email me at ourmysticalhaven.email.
.email, okay.
Or at email, I'm sorry, ourmysticalhaven@email.com. There we go.
Okay. Thought it might have a little bit more there.
A little bit. So, and I'm also on BitChute as Our Mystical Haven, and MeWe as I think I'm there as Diane Jarecki. Yeah.
Wonderful.
And
And
we shop our Mystical Haven.
yeah. Oh, yes, you have a Estee store, right?
Yes.
And that's our Mystical Haven.
Yes.
So we'll put the links below. I will put the links below. So I can be reached at wanderingwildwoman.life is my website. It's still under construction. That's what I said. I'm a procrastinator. I got to get it done. And also these podcasts can be found on any podcast platform. So that can be Apple Podcasts, that can be Spotify, things like that. And it's also on BitChute under Wandering Wild Woman, and also YouTube for Wandering Wild Woman. So just remember that and you'll find me. So yeah, so I really enjoyed this conversation with you, and it was very informative, and I would definitely recommend Diane for anything. And thank you so much for tuning in. And remember to get out there and be wild and breathe, especially in this hot, humid air. Thank you so much.
Thank you. This was fun.
Bye-bye.
Bye.